Curious, I think, is the character of the beginner's heart. Curious not in the sense of how expectations are fulfilled or how people might react, but that's the mind. But rather curious of the moment, of what might come up. My commitment tonight, and what I would like to do for you tonight, is to sing a song, a melody, that is more than verses, but is rather resonant chords being plucked from the heart. And as I do that, most if not all of what I say will be coming straight from the heart, not from my mind. I've noted a couple little points over the weeks of what I wanted to share, but other than that, all of this will be new to me as it's new to you. And that's important because it keeps me curious too. And if I'm going to give you a talk on the beginner's heart, I need to be there. So a couple things about this talk. This is going to be more than just me lecturing to you. I want this to be a journey between us all. As I just said, I don't know where we're going to go. All I know is where we're starting from and where I hope we end, which is in the heart. So as we progress, as questions are asked, as answers are given, as exploration happens, come with me. See what comes up in your own body, in your own mind, in your own heart. And let's just see what manifests, what gets to express. Another characteristic of the beginner's heart, gratitude. And I have amazing gratitude right now. I'm actually on the verge of tears, holding it back because of this showing of support, of awesome community. Thank you. And I'm grateful that I can speak. I'll be very honest with you, these are not my absolute first words today. Today was the first day that I spoke in 6 months. But my first words were to my mother, and this morning via Skype, who I haven't gotten to speak to verbally, vocally, in 6 months. So I called her up, and She didn't know I was calling. She didn't even know I had her phone number. I called her up and she answers, and she answered in Spanish, "Who is this?" And I said, "It's your son." She goes, "What? Your son? What? I love you." Those were really my first words. And I could hear not just the gasp, but I could hear and feel the resonance of her heart. Because that's what happens when we drop into the beginner's heart, when we get present, when we surprise each other by coming to each other from that place. Is that it automatically drops you in. It takes you out of the mind, which is full of distractions, and it takes you to this place of utter connection. It's the edge of emotion, the beginner's heart. Curious, grateful, surrendered, open. Over these last 6 months, as my mind has quieted down, as the monkey inside started to sit and just peel its banana slowly instead of going, as the mind quieted, what was left were those words: curious, grateful, surrender, beautiful, love, ecstasy, community, connection. The words of complaint, the words of hatred, of disgust, of I can't, of negativity, all these things, they fall away. Because those can only stay if your mind is revolving in them. Your heart doesn't go there. One of the things that I love about giving spiritual talks is that if I pause for a moment and I just look up kind of distant, I'm trying to figure out what to say next. You guys are all thinking, man, he's so wise. Look, he's just like downloading it. Only works in this market. So, as I continue today, because like I said, I really don't know where I'm going. I am ad-libbing, I'm winging it, and I'm playing off of the energy that you all get to give to me. So there will be time for question and answers, definitely, because I know over 6 months enough of you have asked me enough questions that I haven't been able to answer, that maybe you've got them saved up. And before that time, I'm just going to kind of let the moment take me. I'm going to just share whatever comes through. As I said, tonight's about the beginner's heart. It's about connection. And it's about emptying. Because you can't reach the beginner's heart if you're full. You can't get to the beginner's heart if your canvas is already painted on. You can have the most beautiful painting, or you could have a nightmarish painting. Whatever it is, it's just a painting. So I'm going to ask you as we go through this today, is I want you to take whatever your painting is, whatever your definition of life, of love, of connection, of heart, whatever that is right now, I want you to take it, scrunch it up into a little ball, put it in your pocket. You can get to it later. Because today we're going to go together into a new definition, into something that's felt, not thought. Are you guys with me?
Yeah.
Awesome. So where do we begin? I suppose we can start just with talking a little bit about being in the present moment. It's one of the things that I've loved about being in silence is that it keeps people on the edge of their seats. I've given a few presentations in silence, and they've been the best attention that I've had. Normally there's a little bit of distraction. People are talking or they're writing or this or that. But when you're in silence and you're up in front of people, they're like, no, he's writing something. Even when I'm around town with my little mini iPad, which I've got a notice about that in a moment. When I'm around town, if I take that out, and normally it's just to write myself a note, everybody's like, private. So my life has become very public since I became silent, which is funny. The notice on the iPad. So here's what tonight is for me. It's a few things. First, it's my birthday. It marks 200 days that I have been silent. And it's kind of like when a whale comes up to the surface to breathe some air before going down even deeper. So after tonight, immediately after this talk, the mouth closes again for another 6 months without writing in person. I'll continue to email, Facebook. I run my businesses that way. But in person, conversationally, when I'm in front of you, I don't want to use something in between us. The entire purpose of my going silent was to cultivate a heart expression, a heart language that was beyond spoken words. Now I'm going even deeper so that it's beyond symbols, spoken or written. Because if there's one thing that I have found in these 6 months, it's that if you just become present with one another, look into each other's eyes, smile. You need to smile when you're looking because otherwise it's creepy. I realize this. If you do this, immediately something deep inside goes and says, speak to me, listen to me, hear me, connect with me. That's the beginner's heart. So tonight is about me getting to celebrate my 33rd birthday. It's about me coming up for a breath of air. And it's about getting to share a message that over these last 6 months just keeps popping up for me. And it's that the heart, beyond anything else, is the most important expression, the most important place of expression that you can have. Not just because it's, the lovey-dovey heart, but because it's pure. The mind, like I said, has all these distractions. It's filled with all this other stuff going on in the world. Even in modern research, they look and they say that the mind is only a receptor. It doesn't actually have nerves that go out to express. So that's why they can do open brain surgery on you. And you don't feel it, there's no pain, because there's no nerves going out of the brain sending signals. Yet we try to communicate and express and connect all the time from the mind. But it's only a receptor. What needs to happen is it comes in here through the 5 senses, through whatever other areas that you channel in from, and then it comes here, and you don't need to say anything. It's felt. It's known. And when you do that, no interpretation gets in the way. One of the questions that's been asked to me while I've been in silence is, how do I do with girls? And there's a lot of responses to that, some that aren't appropriate for tonight. But the main one is that it actually lets me connect with everybody in a much deeper fashion. There was somebody that I was connecting with a little bit at the beginning of my silence, and we actually had 2 Skype calls for 3 hours in silence, both of us. We typed a little here and there, but most of it was just sitting in each other's presence across the world. It's possible. One of the things that I find that the mind does is that it's always comparing. It actually comes up beautifully in one of the other questions that people always ask me. It's one of two questions. They either say, well, but you're writing, is that really silence? And that's already a comparison. They're looking at, well, what other models of silence have I looked at? They're not asking, what's this model of silence that this man here presently is practicing? They're comparing. It's the mind. The other question that's often asked is unimportant because I forgot it. I love getting to just move with the heart because everything's excused. Actually, what's just coming up right now is that I love you guys. I absolutely love every one of you. Each day that I get to come out into town and I'm greeted with hugs, with smiles, sometimes with funny awkward bows, which I go, I'm just silent, I'm not a guru, stop it. But I'm so grateful. To me, community and connection is probably the most important thing. One of the things that Jeremiah mentioned when I was in San Diego, I was a public speaker and I was also the founder of an organization and a center called the Center for Connection. Connecting people, giving a space for it. We didn't have any philosophy or any specific, belief system. It was just, hey, we have a space. Come and connect. And even before that, I think connection has been something that's kind of skated its way through my life. Sometimes in fashions that didn't seem like it was the priority. And this, I think, happens a lot. It's when the mind is interfering through conditioning. When I was much, much younger, probably all the way up through most of high school, actually, I was actually afraid of connection. I was afraid of contact with people. For any of you who have seen my TEDx talk, I talk about this a little bit. Show of hands, who's seen the TEDx talk? Cool, this will be new to most of you. So, I used to be so afraid of contact that I couldn't even touch somebody on the shoulder to move around them. I felt like I was invading their space. And I didn't know at the time that it was because I knew the power of connection. Somewhere deep inside me said, when you connect with somebody, it must be sacred, every time. That means if you're walking down the street and somebody's across the way, your connection to them must be sacred. If you're in an intimate moment with a partner, it must be sacred. If you're on a phone call with a telemarketer, it must be sacred. No matter who, where, what the connection is, make it sacred. And all that means is be present. Because too often we dismiss what's happening in this moment because we're comparing. Because we're in the mind going, no, that's not what I'm interested in right now. I want to go do this or I want to do that. And we miss something so important that might be happening right now. There was a quote that I'll paraphrase because I can't quite remember exactly how it goes. That to live your life and ever not express something that comes up is to have robbed another of what might have changed their life. You don't know what each moment will mean to each other or to yourself unless you become present to it. And this again comes back to what I'm saying is the beginner's heart. It's being curious, present, and grateful for whatever is being presented. Probably the other thing that I found while I've been silent, this was in the first 2 or 3 months, is that when I would communicate with people, especially when I was trying not to use the iPad much, I would say something and some people I could do a gesture like, and they'd be like, oh yeah, meet at the yoga barn 6 o'clock for lunch? Okay. I don't know how they got that, but they would. Other people, I could do the most descriptive miming. It would be like the Hall of Fame of charades. And they'd be like, what? No, get your iPad out. And what I found, the reason that was, is because of where they were connecting with me from. If they were connecting from the mind, they had a hard time figuring out what I was saying. The moment they dropped into their heart, they got it like that. Sometimes I wouldn't even need to speak. I've played with a lot of things in these 6 months, some of it being telepathy, even cloud bursting. Have you guys ever seen Men Who Stare at Goats? Remember that scene where George Clooney's like, he's trying to burst the cloud? It's real. One, I can say it's real, the idea of that kind of a section in the military from the movie, because that's what I was in. I was PSYOP, psychological operations. And we did sort of that kind of stuff. And because I've been practicing in silence this intention of connection, this intention of moving what's within me out into the world without having to speak it through symbols, I found that doing stuff like bursting clouds is very possible. The funny thing about it is that it doesn't come from the mind, because I started doing that at the beginning. At first I was like crunching my brow going, nothing was happening. And then I started incorporating it into another practice. I would meditate first, I'd do some Qigong, I'd do a little yoga, and then I'd get up and just kind of go, and I'd look up at a little puff of cloud and just have this intention. And I wouldn't think with my mind, but I would just sit there and I'd start to feel this resonance in my heart. And all of a sudden, the cloud would be like, and I would be like, oh, nobody was here. But the ego's the only one that wants to know that people see it. That's the mind. And what it reminded me of, actually, and I think that this cartoon was totally on it way back when. How many of you used to see the Care Bears? Yeah. Care Bear stare? And they lived in clouds. Uh-huh. Telling you. So the most miraculous things are possible when you just drop in. When you come into this place of the beginner's heart. I'm not saying the mind is not useful. It's here for a very good purpose. One is to receive knowledge, to receive expression from others, but not to interpret it, not to express it. It is only here to receive it and send it right here. I'll put a little disclaimer out. Everything that I say tonight, like I said, it's partly my own opinion, but most of it is totally new. It's just coming out of my mouth. I'm kind of standing aside going, ah. So don't take anything as absolute truth. Just see it as it is in this moment. Feel if it applies to you. Feel it in your own heart. If it resonates, if it plucks those chords, then live it. Express it yourself. You won't even need to think about it if it actually resonates, because that's the beauty of it. It just resonates. You guys hear voices in your head too? Yeah. A lot of people have been asking me, when do I talk at night to myself, or do I have full conversations in my head? And the truth of the matter is, not really. Because I've been able to stay very social with everyone, because I've gotten to satisfy really the only craving that's there, which is why we often talk a lot, either to ourselves or to others, which is connection. Heartfelt connection. Because that's fulfilled, I go to bed, I'm peaceful. I go home, I'm on my own, I'm peaceful. There's not much going on up here. That didn't sound right. Told you, just coming out before I can think about it. I'll pause for a moment. Do any of you have questions? And actually, before you ask a question, I want to define what I mean by question, because I said earlier that we're going to be present, we're going to take a journey, and we're going to be in the heart. So I don't want questions that are coming from the mind, and here's the difference. A question of the mind isn't really seeking an answer, it's seeking confirmation. You see, questions of the mind already have a set of answers that apply, and you're looking for the confirmation of one of those. A true question, one that's coming from the heart, is just curious. It's just asking something with absolutely no idea what the response might be, but is curious, absolutely interested in what might come. So if I was to ask you right now, does anybody have a true question? How many of you in your head just now asked, do I? That's a true question. It has no set answer.
I have a question.
Yes.
What senses, physiologically or perception or whatever, what senses got heightened when the voice went away?
Not so much a sense, but patience. Which, when I say patience, I mean the ability of creating space. When you're not filling that space with words, not filling that space with what a friend who's in this room right now called the upgrade game. I absolutely love that. It simply means that you're looking for what's the next step, instead of what's right now, what's actually happening in this moment. When you allow and invite into a space, then all the senses get heightened. That's what being silent has done. I have no idea what that is, but I have a feeling it's birthday cake. Yes, there is the heart. It is a child. That is what the heart is. When you look around, especially with the young kids we have here in Ubud and anywhere in the world, there is a curiosity there that has no bounds, especially their parents. The parent, no. And that's beautiful. See, there's laughter everywhere. I love it. Acceptance is probably another thing. The senses are just the 5 senses, so I'm not really focusing on those because we often say that you shut off one sense and the rest heighten. I don't think that's what's happening. I think you shut off one sense and you open the potential for other things, for awareness, for patience, for acceptance, for surrender. That's a big one. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a conversation, somebody said something, I was like, oh, I've got such a good joke for that. Surrender. Let it go. Or other times where I've typed out like an entire dissertation, and when I'm ready to present it, they've moved on in the conversation. I'm like, delete. And it's okay because I get to realize in those moments, oh, that wasn't that important. I also get to look deeper, and this is where it gets really juicy. When you start to notice where you've been distracted, where you've let your mind be mandating and directing what it is you're doing, rather than your heart, you start noticing that there's something behind the mind that's also doing that. And it's usually an emotion, a feeling, some sense of lack. Something where you thought there was a missing element. And so your mind, because your mind's a servant to you, it's not your master. Your mind is sitting there going, oh, he feels like he's missing something. Let me look. Is it there? Is it there? Is it over there? No. So whenever these little things would happen, like maybe I didn't get to express something, or maybe this was actually the one that really normally triggered me, is if people would come and tell me what they thought I should be practicing, how I should be practicing, and this little thing would be like, when was the last time you practiced a year of silence? And I had to look at that and be like, okay, why does that anger me? And you go deeper and you start to do this introspection, and you, because I want to feel like what I'm doing has purpose. And then I have to look even deeper. Does it have purpose? Is it a purpose for somebody else, or is it a purpose for me? Where's the purpose? Why is the purpose? Ooh, that's a good word right there. Why? We often focus on what and how. And for any of you who are entrepreneurs, or even if you're working as a service anywhere else, whatever you do, you have a purpose. You have a vision. You have something you want to be giving to the world, sharing that's yours. And normally what stops us from doing that is that we're focused on the what and the how. And so we have this feeling, and it's like, I want to go and hug everybody. I feel so good when I do that. I do, really. And we go, what? And we go, okay, well, hugging. And then the mind goes, okay, well, there's a lot of stuff around that. Like, people might not receive it, or, how do I approach? And that's the how. Maybe I hold up a sign, free hugs. Maybe I put up a website that says free hugs online, and I just have me up there going, all this ridiculous stuff that we start to imagine, and then we take no action. And instead, we do some daily task to keep ourselves busy with this idea that, okay, I'm moving towards what my vision is. I'm moving towards what my passion is and my purpose. I just have to get this and 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 this, and then maybe this over here done before I get there. Something I used to ask my students back in San Diego. When I was in college, I was a religious studies assistant, teacher's assistant. And so I would do these big review sessions, and we'd have like 300 plus people in there. And before I would start the review session, I would ask them this. I'd say, why are you here? Most would answer, well, to do well on the exam. Oh, okay. Why do you want to do well on the exam? So that we pass the class with a good grade. Okay, why do you want a good grade? So we get a good job. Why do you want a good job? So we make a lot of money. Why do you want a lot of money? So that we can eventually retire, have a lot of money, and do the things we love. What do you love? Oh, just chilling with my friends, going surfing, hanging out. If you weren't here at this review session right now, what would you be doing? I'd be chilling with my friends, hanging out. Take the shortcut, people. All this other stuff is fluff. All this other stuff is just there because the mind is actually, I'm going to keep referring to this, that the mind is not an enemy. Nothing is an enemy. Everything has a purpose and a reason. The mind is trying to help you because you feel like something's missing. And so it's looking for it for you. So the first thing I'm going to say and offer and invite you to do to drop into that beginner's heart is to realize that you are abundant within yourself. And here's how I'll prove it. When you are looking for that thing, maybe it's through a relationship. And then you get that relationship, and at first you're like, oh, yes, this is what I've been looking for in my life. It's wonderful, beautiful. And you feel so fulfilled. So you recognized something. And then maybe it leaves and you realize that it's gone, and you feel that despair and that sadness and depression, and you go, oh, something's gone. Again, you recognized something. If you can recognize it, it means that you have it. Otherwise, you can't recognize it. Have you guys ever heard of the historical idea that when Columbus came to the States and they were on the boats, that the Indians couldn't actually see the ships because they didn't know what a ship was. They'd never seen one. It wasn't in their paradigm. So they didn't even see it. That's the same thing with everything else. If it's never been something that you have, and always have within you, you can't recognize it. So when you go out looking with your mind for these things to fulfill your heart, your being, yourself, every time that you recognize it outside of you, it's because it's inside of you. Does that make sense? Yes. Every time that you recognize something outside of you, it's because it's inside of you. One of the beautiful things about when you drop in, when you feel, when you let the barriers and the boundaries and the walls that we build up because we think, well, I need to get a better perspective. And this, it's funny. People think that we build walls to separate ourselves, but ultimately, deep inside, nobody wants to be separate. Even if it's for protection, you don't want to be separate. And so what I believe we really are doing when we build walls is we're trying to create a way to get a better perspective from a safe space. Yet, when you do that, your perspective is warped. Because you're not seeing it from the same level as whatever you're looking at. That comes back to what I mean when it's a resonance in the heart. There's a term called sympathetic resonance. It's when you take, does anybody know this? Sympathetic resonance? Cool. It's if you take two violins or anything that vibrates at similar frequencies. Let's say you take two violins and you start playing a chord on one. You start to play a certain frequency there. It automatically starts to play on the other. This is how our hearts work. This is how our souls work, our spirit. I remember my first year here in Bali. I've been here for about 3 years now. That I was talking with this woman who actually her job is to just go around and spread love. It was great. That's what her card said. It said, love. I was like, what? And as I sat there talking with her, once I got past the mental stuff, which was, wow, she's really attractive. I wonder if I have a chance. How long is she here for? All that distraction. Once I got past that and I was actually just present to her and thinking, wow, she's touching something inside of me that is just with her words, just with her presence, just with the way that she's looking at me right now. And it has nothing to do with anything she's giving me. What she's doing is being an example of a vibration, of a frequency, and I'm feeling it in myself. Sympathetic resonance. I remember in that moment I thought, this is what love, when we say we fall in love, this is what it is. It's the connection of the vibration, not the objects. When I say objects, I mean whether it be an inanimate object or another person. That's not what's really important. Those are expressions. They will come and go. If you give importance to that, like utter importance, attachment happens, disappointment happens, depression happens, all sorts of other stuff, or absolutely enjoy if things move fluidly together. But the point is that to be equanimous, to not, let's say if you're surfing, to not fight the wave, move with it. And so, I confused myself on that. Did I confuse you guys? No. Oh, good. Let me drop in for a moment. Go ahead and do it with me. Close your eyes. Drop in and take a deep breath in Exhale. The next breath in, follow it in. And find where the inhale touches the exhale. There, that seed, that place of inspiration. Let that start to grow within you. Let that start to rise as an energy, as a vibration, as an expression. Maybe it comes up over the shoulders. Maybe it catches the corners of the lips and it moves upward and outward with those lips. I like to call this a smile. And the beautiful thing about it, it's an ancient practice. The beautiful thing about it is if you take this practice and now open your eyes and look around, you're in the beginner's heart. And you'll notice that when you look around practicing this, you can't help but smile wider. It grows. And that's what happens when you're here. It becomes exponential. It becomes something that is overflowing. That's why there's gratitude there. Here's a funny story for you. So, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, before I came to Bali, I had been asked from San Diego, somebody saw me talk, and they asked me to come and join their group in Utah giving these workshops. And they were very similar to Landmark workshops, if anybody's done that. And I wasn't very sure about it because I knew Landmark's reputation, and it's a very gestalt, aggressive, like they're not going to let you get away methodology, which is actually good in some senses. It doesn't let you escape your own excuses, lets you go deep inside. And at first I said, no, thank you. And they were like, no, please, we want you to come out. We want you to become a teacher, this and that. And I said, okay, well, what's the price? Because I know there's some strings attached. And no, we'll pay for everything. We'll give you a house, a car, all this. Like, oh, well, all right. So I went. And over about 5 months, they were training me. I was going through their program and at the same time facilitating their lower level workshops. And I remember at one point, halfway in, I was in the house of the guy who was sponsoring me. And mind you, by this point, he had spent easily more than $2,000 to $3,000 on me, just because he believed in what was going on there. He even got me an Armani suit, a $1,000 Armani suit. I wore it once, and then I don't know what happened. Feel kind of bad about that one. I still have the shoes. So we sat down, we were in his kitchen, and he says to me, turns and he goes, hey, I want to ask you a question. How do you feel about patrons? And in my mind, I was jumping for joy. I was like, yeah, I just hit the jackpot. He wants to be my patron. He's going to pay for everything. I'm going to get to just share my message. Yes. And so I told him, I said, that's funny you ask. I was just talking to a friend about that. And we were saying how, that the idea of the Renaissance where people had patrons, the artists had patrons, that it's due again. And he looks at me and goes, oh, because my opinion is that it's the worst possible thing. Oh. And what he told me next is what ties into this idea of gratitude. He said, I want you to be really clear that everything I have given you was not a gift. It was gratitude. Because what you shared in the first talk that I saw you in gave me so much that I was able to give you the next gift. It's like a cup overflowing. And then I invited you to come, and then you gave even more value and more of who you are, your authenticity, your expression, your heart. And that gave me gratitude again, and I could continue to give to you. I have never once given you anything as just a gift or because you were entitled. Because nobody is entitled to that which other people might give to them. You are entitled to everything that who you are. And you have everything within you. Notice the distinction there. You do have an entitlement to be you and to recognize everything that you are. But don't take that externally, because you will create expectation. And at least speaking from my own personal experience with it and my own personal triggers around it, expectation closes the door on that space we were talking about earlier. The moment somebody expects something of you, they just robbed you of the chance to give it. Do you get that? I know a number of times, especially with my family, because there's families, they always trigger you. I have a wonderful relationship with my family. Like I said, I Skyped with them this morning with tears. Often when we'd be out to dinner, I would have this thought, and I'd go, oh, I want to buy everyone dinner. I'm going to buy everyone dinner tonight. And then at the end of the night, maybe because my mom was picking up the thoughts or something, she's very psychic, she'd be like, oh, so you're going to pick up the tab? And immediately I'd shut down. No. How dare you think that I would just pay for everything? Now, moments before, I was thinking, I want to pay for everything. Nothing changed but the expectation. So, another invitation to come into the beginner's heart is make sure that you know you don't need anything from anybody else. That'll keep you from expecting it. When I was probably about 19, 20, something like that, I had my first big epiphany. And I was on the phone with my sister, and at the time we were having a very heated argument. And I remember it was because I had been coming to my mom's to visit, and every time I would come over, I didn't feel like myself. I felt like I was being inauthentic. I felt pigeonholed into the role of son and brother. And so I told them, I said, look, I don't feel like I get to be me when I'm here. So my sister and I were having this conversation on the phone a few weeks after I'd made that statement. And she asked again on the phone, she goes, so do you feel like you're being more yourself now? No. She was like, well, why? She got very frustrated immediately. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was because of the line of questioning, because of just the fact that I was really genuinely interested to find myself. And I was asking true questions about it, that something shifted. And all of a sudden, in that moment, in that instance of being on the phone, my sister's yelling at me, somewhat in tears. And I went from kind of being like this to going, huh. And I had this big, silly grin on my face that I couldn't wipe away. My sister's yelling at me, and I'm like, huh? Yeah. And what happened was, it was like I had broken through the surface of a river that I'd been drowning in all my life. And that river, I'm going to say, is the distractions of the mind, the conditioning that we have, and all the stuff that we do to try to connect externally before knowing where we're connecting from. And eventually my sister asked me, because she could tell something had shifted. She was very good at that. She said, what's going on? I said, I don't know, but I think I just realized why I haven't been feeling like myself, and why I feel that if you knew who I really am, that you and mom and dad and probably most of my circle would be offended. So why? Are you really rude and mean and cruel? No. I don't need you. I just don't need you. She hung up. She called back a few moments later and she said, are you saying you don't love us? And I was still on this kick. I was like not in my body. I was beside myself watching stuff happen. And she said, are you saying you don't love us? And I said, well, do you mean, do I love you because you're my sister and that's the role and we're supposed to? No. Do I love you because it's just this permanent river flowing all the time? Yes. She hung up again. And I get a phone call, another one. It's my mom. And I'm like, oh God. She goes, what's going on? Your sister says you don't love us? What? My mom's gonna watch this video later and be like, that's not what I sound like. And I told her, I said, Mom, I don't know what's going on, but all I can tell you right now is that I can't wipe the smile from my face. I can't clear the joy from my body, from my being, and nothing that I'm saying makes sense, but it feels so right. And she astounded me with her answer. She paused for a moment. She said, I don't really understand, but I'm so happy for you. Oh. Mm-hmm. Do you know why she was able to respond from that place? It is a mom thing. She was in her heart. She didn't call me to combat and to find out what it was that I was doing against what her questions, or my sister's questions, had already come up with answers for. She was calling me with curiosity. She really wanted to know, what's going on with my son? Is there something I can do for him, not from him? That's the other big part of the beginner's heart. In one of the videos that I released before this talk, I gave 3 talks before I went silent, and I put them online for everyone to kind of warm up. One of those videos I talk about love, and I say how love isn't something that you can exchange. It's not something that's given and taken or received, or you can't do that with love. You can do it with expressions of love. Love itself, though, the only thing you can do is recognize it. Because love is that resonance. Remember what I said earlier about that violin vibrating? Imagine taking an organ out and giving it to somebody. That's not, we think we're doing this all the time. Why do you think heartbreak is so breaking? But you're not. You're just giving expressions. And my mom was able to come to me without the expressions, but just with love, with the space of a beginner's heart. I want to share one other story about my mom because, well, quite frankly, she's been one of the biggest inspirations, both directly and indirectly for me. And given it's my birthday, I owe her a lot. Life. When I was away at the military and in Iraq, I was gone for about 3 months in country. And because of the level of security I had top secret clearance. Where I was, where I went, and how long I was there was absolutely unknown to everybody, including myself, until I got there. And so all I could tell my family and my friends before I left was, when you stop hearing from me, it's because I'm there. When you start hearing from me, it's because I'm back. You can't imagine the torture that puts on a family. And I couldn't either until I came back. When I did finally come back, I landed in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and I contacted my family, and of course they were relieved. And see, it already gets me. When I called my mom to tell her, well, I had set up an arrangement to go back home, because I was in North Carolina, I lived in California, to go back home for a couple weeks, do a couple errands and fix a few things, and to go see my home, my family. But I didn't want to tell them, I wanted to surprise them. And so I call my mom up and I say, hey, they're sending me on one more mission. It's not dangerous though, don't worry. It'll just be for a week or so. And it's just a drop-off, pick-up, and that's it. And it's because I wanted her to kind of be prepared to not hear from me from North Carolina while I was in transit. And I wanted to surprise her. And so I get to San Diego, straight from the airport, I take the buses and the trolleys and I go straight to her work. And I walk in and I go to the reception desk and I say, hi, I'm Rodolfo Young, I'm Maria Young's son. Can you tell her that she has a package she needs to come down and sign for? So the receptionist, like with this big gleeful smile, because she knows kind of the backstory, she goes, hey, okay. So she calls my mom up and she tells her perfect straight face, and I hear my mom over the intercom, well, just sign for it yourself. Why do you make me come down? So the receptionist convinced her, so she comes down, and here's where it hits the heart. She turns the corner, she had some stuff in her hands. She turns the corner, she sees me, she literally drops to her knees. And when she does, this is what happens to me also. Because in that moment, she didn't have to say anything. She was resonating it so powerfully, so beautifully from her heart of, I have missed you. I have worried, and I love you. And it was in that moment that I first realized the impact of me being gone, the unknown had had. The beginner's heart is more than just curious, surrender, gratitude. It is space to allow that edge of emotion. It's the surrender of what is already there, wanting to just get expressed without the mind getting in the way, going, oh no, you're in the public eye, you can't do that or do this or say that, or no, that's stupid mind stuff. I have a saying in both my philosophy, my coaching, my services, and it's that authenticity is your most attractive quality. Authenticity is your most attractive quality. And what that means is that when you can take away all the stuff your mind is saying I should show up as, and you show up in the moment as you are, who you are, and you have to know who you are, because you're normally more than you think. When you do that, people can't resist you. That's the other question that relates to the previous question about me being in silence and people asking me how am I doing with girls. A lot of the men in town see me sitting in Clear Cafe and one woman after another comes and gives me a hug. They don't notice that the men are doing it also. And what they're missing is that it's not something I'm doing. It's something I'm opening and allowing. Because I'm being authentic. I'm just being who I am. The words aren't getting in the way anymore. So I'm getting to express just from here. And what that does is it invites a safe space for others to join you. That's why it's your most attractive quality. Yes, Mo.
Does having nothing to say mean that you have nothing to prove?
Very good question. And for those who didn't hear it, he said, is having nothing to say mean you have nothing to prove? What's coming through on that is that you never have anything to prove. Yet, in this world, this society, we're trying to build stuff, especially if it's a business, we need credit, right? And credit is what goes into this proof thing. And the reason that it never is satiated, you can never fully prove yourself to another, is because, let's say I'm trying to prove to you that I'm an amazing pilot. I have no idea how to fly a plane. Okay? And so I'm here and I could put the most straight poker face on and be like, I can fly from here to Tahiti. Somewhere inside of you, because you're not just listening to my words, but you're reading my energy, is going, I don't know about that. This is actually a huge thing for anybody that's marketing their business. One of my other businesses is a lot of online marketing, is if you're not authentic, if you're trying to prove something that's not actually aligned in integrity with who you really are, people will smell it from a mile away and they won't trust you. This is probably one of the biggest lessons that I had last year, and partly a reason why I went into my silence. Last year, I think for everybody, was a pretty tumultuous roller coaster of a time. Am I right? Yeah. Well, I had a lot of stuff happen to me, and I'm going to share something that I've not shared publicly in a long time, and I had to even check in with the person related in this to make sure it was okay. This is really vulnerable. So, it was actually probably earlier than last year. It was the year before, when I was giving my TEDx talk. I was in a relationship, beautiful relationship, and I was full heart in that. I'd just been given this opportunity to give a TEDx talk. Wow, like my public speaking career was going to launch. And I just landed a gig helping to create a website and this whole social media campaign for something that could completely revolutionize Bali, and it partly did. And then I got one more piece of information that just put me over the top of ecstasy. And it was that I was going to be a father. I didn't know at the time that I wanted that. But when I found out, it was like that time with my sister on the phone. I couldn't wipe the smile away. And so I was at the height, like the pinnacle, the climax of everything. And I thought, wow, life is amazing. About 3 months later, the TEDx talk went well. I didn't really get much of the follow-up that I'd hoped for. The big campaign completely crashed to politics and internal conflicts. And we lost the baby. A few months after that, lost the partner. And above all, I lost my confidence and my safety. And so my heart, that beginner's heart, was covered in I can't tell you how many layers. At the time, my mom had actually come over, and she was there the night when I found out. And I remember coming down the stairs, and she could tell just from looking at me. And she offered a hug, and here was the interesting thing. At that moment, even though a hug was the thing I wanted most, I had so much anger, so much frustration, so much against the world because I thought something had been taken, that I pushed her away. Here's the thing. No matter what happens in your life, no matter what trauma, no matter what loss, no matter what challenge that seems like you won't be able to get over it, it has a purpose, it has a lesson, and here's the big one, it has an opportunity, an invitation. Because you see, had I in that moment been able to drop all of this other stuff that had accumulated and embrace my mom or embrace anybody that could hold me in that moment, I would have realized that my heart was still full. That only an expression had been lost. And that's not to say anything to diminish what happened, because trust me, it's still core, it's raw. But what's been more important in learning from that comes to your question, Mo, about proving. The reason I was angry, The reason that a lot of the stuff happened with the social media campaign and everything else that then kind of just collapsed is because I was so wrapped up in an egoic thought of the mind that said, I'm failing at proving who I can be. I have failed to prove that I can be a father. I have failed to prove that I can be an entrepreneur. I have failed to prove that I'm here to do a difference. And because I got stuck in that line of thinking, and I started going out and just trying to prove, that's actually what made me lose my partner. Because what she saw in me was, you have nothing to prove. You're amazing as you are. But you trying to prove it is pushing everyone away. Does that hit somewhere inside of you guys? Can you relate?
Yeah.
So here's the invitation, the suggestion. Don't try to prove anything. You don't have to. I can unequivocally say to you, from my own personal experience, from what I've seen in those in the room and everybody that I've ever come in contact with, who you are is enough and more. You don't have to prove anything. When you're trying to prove, it's normally because you're trying to, out of comparison, be somebody else. But that's their part. That's what they are doing in the moment. That's the balance they are playing. You have a different one. Be your balance, be your purpose, your vision, your passion. I'll tell you guys a little hidden secret about the talk today. First, thank you so much again for being here, for letting me share with you so vulnerably. It really does mean a lot. Here's this hidden agenda. As I've dropped more and more into my beginner's heart, the more and more that I've cleared challenges, distractions, is the more that I've realized that I have my own purpose. I have a passion. I have a very strong vision. And where I saw it most clearly was when sitting and listening to musicians playing their hearts out. When watching educators teaching because they absolutely care for the students. It's when I saw other people doing what they truly believed in as a service. When they were living their passion. And again, coming back to that idea of proving, when I dropped in and I looked at, okay, this is a big one. I'm trying to look and prove, and where is it that I have forgotten myself? And so I looked to see what was actually being triggered. And what was being triggered was a sense of not being respected. Because that's often where we feel it, is we start trying to prove because we think that the other person's not respecting us. You know, maybe it's in a new group or something like that, and you're thinking, oh, they won't respect me unless I prove myself. And so this respect, this is what I started to notice was a continual pattern for me, where I wasn't feeling other people fully respecting me. That was all in my mind, because whenever I would actually ask somebody directly, they'd be like, are you kidding? Like, you inspire, you do this, you do that. And that's the funny thing, is we cloud ourselves with our own self-judgments. So I asked myself, okay, it's not about them not respecting me. Do I respect me? And the immediate answer was no. Why? Because I knew I wasn't living to my potential. I knew that I was hiding. I knew that I was playing small. I knew that I was distracting myself. It wasn't that I needed to prove I could make a difference. It was I needed to make a difference. And stop going and doing all these detours and all this other stuff. Just do it. Because you can. You have the potential. And so here's hidden agenda. When I realized what my vision is, what my purpose is, I set a mission statement for 2013, and it's to inspire 100,000 people to live lives of purpose and passion. This year, and then it goes up next year. And I want you guys to be part of that. Whether it be just because you're here at this talk right now and you leave with something that gets to move you to be more yourself, whether it be because you go outside and scan the cool little QR code on my poster outside and start receiving some of my articles, or if it's just because you get a hug from me later. Whatever it is that I can do to hold the presence, to be here for you, to be you. That's really why I called you all here tonight. So I hope you forgive me. I want to inspire you. Not with what I say, not with what I do, but by touching the place inside of you that knows already how amazing you are. Show of hands, who knows how amazing they are? Yes! Both hands. Woohoo! I love it. So that is the meat and potatoes of what I have for you today. I'm open to questions for a good while, and we'll just let it continue to flow. Yes?
First of all, I just want to thank you for doing this for everybody and for providing this service. It's amazing, so thank you.
Thank you.
Tons of gratitude. And I just wanted to ask you what it felt like to speak your first word tonight.
It was a little daunting, only because before coming, I'm used to in my public speaking winging it. But this time I was winging it from a different place, not from here. Normally I wing it because I have a collection of stories and ideas and topics, and I know how to work the crowd. But this time it was, okay, I'm just going to stand in front of them. I'm going to drop into my heart, and we're going to see what happens. That was scary. But I think it worked out well. Yeah. Yes?
I've been working with and writing a lot about the chakra system lately, so I feel like I'm interfacing with the world through the psychology. And anyway, so I'm wondering how your ability to listen has shifted and your creative expression has shifted in the past 6 months. And if you're familiar with the system of the chakras, what other energies for you have awakened through the silence?
Mostly heart chakra, that's for sure. Yeah, I've been Care Bear staring everybody. One of my intentions was to open up a lot more of the third eye to get the intuition coming in. And what I started to realize is that even though I was focusing here, or as long as I was focusing here to do that, it wasn't happening. And then when I dropped into here, I was like, whoa. Because it might receive here, but I think it gets expressed and interpreted and shown here. What was the other part of your question? There was a first part to it. Yeah.
Your creativity.
Yeah, I'm like a fly on the wall. I know about all of your lives. Being silent doesn't make me deaf. No, no, nobody's gonna talk around me. No, going silent, what it's actually done is because I'm no longer involved in what I'm going to say back, I get to be really, really attentive. Really attentive. And interested. You know? I take every opportunity when somebody comes up to me to start chatting, and it's like, I get comfortable. I'm like, oh, okay. What are we going to get today? And I've gotten the most beautiful, vulnerable stories and expression, and people coming, whether they come because they want some coaching or advice on something, or just because they want to tell me about their day, whether it was good or bad, whatever it is, to listen from this place, so beautiful, because it doesn't matter what they're saying. I get to start resonating. Quick little side note on that. One thing that I have really come attuned to is the masculine and the feminine energies within. What I've realized, I'm just going to throw this out there, check in to see if it works for you. The masculine, often in the mind, looking for plans, looking for structure, looking for ways of understanding how something is, and normally looking for solutions. The feminine energy, looking to express, to be, to love, to hold, to nurture. And so what I would find with myself is that if I had something come up, a challenge or a trigger or something like that, and then I'd go to a friend to talk about it, my masculine side had already figured it out. It was like, oh, yeah, it's because of this and that trigger, okay, whatever. But my feminine side was like, oh, I want to be heard. I want somebody to hear this, please. And so I'd go to a friend and I'd start talking to them, and they'd start coming back to me with the masculine side to solve the problem. I'd be like, no, I'm done with that. Stop patronizing me. I want to just express. So a big thing that I realized that has to do with listening is know what somebody's coming to you with. Do they want a solution, or do they just want to be heard? You can either ask or you can just feel it. Drop in with them.
I'm curious, Rodolfo, what is it that made you decide to go back to your side of this?
A couple of things. One, the original intention was for a year. So this was always just a brief interlude, which really only happened because I had this very strong feeling I wanted to share. And like I said, I didn't know what it was going to be until I came today. The other part of it is that I've really enjoyed silence. It's gotten me out of a lot of sticky situations. By that, I don't just mean by not putting my foot in my mouth, but it means that I've not had to entertain idle chatter, which is a waste of energy. There is a difference, because of what I just said earlier, between listening to idle chatter that's because somebody needs to vent and be heard, and just idle chatter that's there because somebody's uncomfortable. Because if they're uncomfortable, it's again back to they feel they're missing something. So rather than letting them continue to deflect what it is that's really going on, what I'll often do is I'll just bring all my attention to, what do they think they're missing? Let me give it to them. Not give it to them like I'm going to take it from me, but let me show them it's there. You're not missing it. It's right there. Look. Maybe it's that they feel unacknowledged, and it's just acknowledging. Things like that. So I'll be going back to silence deeper this time without the iPad, because even though with the iPad I still got to create that space to observe what was going on for myself, it robbed me of a little bit of just being in the heart. It gave me a convenience that got out of hand after a while. And so I'm a man of self-infliction, I guess. I'm going to take that away so that I can go deeper, so I can connect deeper. And actually, a big reason, I get to tell you a story, one of my favorite stories with this. So there was a guru in India, and one day he's up there on his little cushion, and this devotee, this woman comes up to him. You may have heard this story. This woman comes up to him with her son, and she says, "Oh, Guruji, please, tell my son to stop eating sweets." And the guru says, yes, of course. Come, boy, come. No, come tomorrow. So the woman leaves, very happy, so she knows, oh, he's going to tell my son tomorrow. So the next day she comes very excited. Oh, please, Guruji, tell him. Yes. No. Come in 2 days. 2 days later, she comes. Again, same story. He keeps stalling, and 3 months go by. Finally, she comes. She brings him forward. Guruji, please, would you tell him? And he says to the boy, he goes, boy, stop eating sweets. Okay, go. Done. The woman leaves happy. The boy's happy. Guru's happy. His apprentice, who's been watching the whole thing for 3 months, is perplexed. And he looks at me and goes, Guru, you could have told this boy this 3 months ago. Why did you wait? And he looks at him and goes, 3 months ago, I still like to eat sweets. Gotta walk your talk. Or for me, walk my non-talk. Yeah. Yeah.
Curious to know, you've said a lot about how your interactions have become more authentic, more heart. How about loneliness? How has that come and gone throughout this last 6 months?
At the beginning, there was little phases where I would feel, and it's actually funny, it'd be only in moments where, because of my silence, if I was in a group, everybody would kind of energetically, not even physically, shift the conversation where I wasn't included. And it wasn't on purpose. It just was happening partly from their discomfort, my discomfort. I hadn't really figured out how to socialize yet. And yeah, in those moments, I got a ping of like, oh, I don't belong. As time progressed, that went away. And actually, especially after my 21-day fast, did a 21-day fast in December, I didn't want to be immersed as much anymore. And actually, at this point, I really enjoy my alone time. At the same time, I love hugs, so I come out. Yeah. So loneliness hasn't really been a huge factor, this time around at least. I remember in my youth, I used to, because I'm a very social person, in my youth, I used to go out, I'd socialize, I'd be, the butterfly, I'd be like, and then I'd go home and be like, and it was because I wasn't being authentic. And I think that's, again, it comes back to, loneliness happens never by yourself. Do you guys get that? You are never lonely when you're alone. You're lonely when you are amongst people or in the situation where you could be amongst people. That's when you feel lonely because there's a sense of separation. And so it comes down to this idea of connection and authenticity. Can you, when you're with other people, present yourself? You. Because if you do that, there's no separation. If you do that, they can connect immediately. And loneliness doesn't have any space in it.
You talk about finding your purpose in your life. How did that happen for you? I was sort of looking for mine.
It's funny because throughout our lives, at least this is what happened for me, we're being told what our purpose is all the time. Just normally we're like, oh, no, I couldn't do that. Well, that maybe later. Or we put all these excuses in place. And then when it finally does hit you, you're like, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking like 3 years ago. And that's what I was 5 years ago. And that like 7 years ago, that's what came up. Why do I keep getting distracted? And that's the key word right there, is distraction. It's not that you don't know what your purpose is. I like to think of it like there's a saying in Taoism of Bo, which means the uncarved block. And it's that if you have this big marble slab, the sculptor doesn't come and create something. The sculptor comes and carves away what's unnecessary to reveal the beauty that's already there. Your purpose, your vision, your passion's already there. You just have layers of distraction and excuse on top of it. It can be stuff from not feeling like you have enough skill to do what it is you're passionate about. Lack of clarity, lack of money. There's been ones where it's feeling like you're not living up to an expectation, lack of education, all sorts of different things that normally have to do with the mind's thought that you're not ready. I'm telling you right now, you're ready. You've been ready since you were born. It's your purpose. I want you guys to wake up to who you are. One of my greatest frustrations is when I see somebody that I look right through them and I'll be like, wow, this person could change the world. And their posture's like this because they don't believe it. I want to change that. So I'm going to end with that. Thank you, everybody. I'm utterly grateful. And I'm open for hugs.
Hey, first.